Welcome to Girls Talk Comics. This is Erin, your master of mediocrity. Today I will be joined by Brian Hawkins and Patrick Foreman, co-contributors to the Scout Comics book Black Cotton. Brian Hawkins is a writer, a knower of self, and a doting husband and father. His favorite pastimes include reading, binging shows with his wife, playing dolls with his daughters, and watching his son play video games. Patrick Foreman is a retired Master Sergeant of the Marine Corps, a singer, and a sneaker of chocolate cake. This interview was, without a doubt, invigorating, refreshing, and an absolute joy for me. We will be talking comics, racism, and the impact of black and white art. Heads up, Black Cotton is a book that can and should be read by anyone, but I lean a bit harder into the conversation than Patrick and Brian do in the story. In this episode, I also share a personal story about my family. In reverence to my grandmother, may she rest in peace, I would like to formally state that this story was always shared with shame, as a means to teach anti-racism to me, and was not shared in any way to absolve my family from the actions within. My grandmother was one of the first anti-racists I met. She was far from perfect, but she helped form my foundation. If a listener wants to reach out and talk about their own familial experiences and process that, feel free to do so through our Twitter or Facebook. I hope you enjoy and stick around for the full episode. It really is a great ride. Patrick and Brian, I really hope they can lead some panels someday. It was good. Thank you. We got those virgin variants are beautiful. But when you have a stack of 30 in bags and boards and you can't identify a single one of them, you're like, why are they putting Spider-Man on Fantastic Four covers? Why are X-Men involved with Captain America? I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of stress with those covers.
And I completely agree, because even with ours, the two variants from Far Side Comics and Hive Comics, they got the virgin cover. And I always think about it. I'm like, if it don't say Black Cotton, then how do they know it's Black Cotton?
It didn't have a sign, right, that says Black Cotton.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to hit you up though, because she probably got some sweet comments that she can get her hands on. It's almost she see them when they come in.
There might be a little bit of that. Right now, I am elbow deep in all the store's backstock, because the store that I'm at right now inherited backstock from two other stores. So finding like Detective Comics from every stack of hundreds that have been out, and then like you open a box and it's just full of comics that are $1 or full of comics that are about $80. Right. You're like, I don't know what to do with myself.
I might have to talk to you about my Deadly Class run.
Okay. Oh, I got Deadly Class, bro.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think.
What issue you stop at?
1, 2, 3, 4.
I stopped at in the 20s somewhere. I'm missing some, so yeah. Okay. That's my jam.
I'll see what I can
Deadly
find.
Class.
Yeah.
I missed some, and so I stopped reading it because I don't want to have that gap, and I didn't want to like read them like digitally. I want them like, certain comics that I want to read holding it, physically, and that's one that I want to read holding it. So
and you'll see, Erin, between us, we marry so well because he's the reader, he's the hardcore reader, and I'm the hardcore collector. Yeah. So what do you are you a reader, or what's your passion with comics?
I'm a reader. I barely collect any. In fact, there might be some friends of mine who collect Ice Cream Man who are going to be really pissed off at this next sentence, and that I sold out all of my Ice Cream Man. I was just like, it's too many. Yeah. It's too much to have all of the singles. If I want to read them, I'll get the trade, and that's just who I am. And
I respect it. I respect it.
I
do validation.
Too.
Yeah. There's some covers I'm like keeping, but for the most part.
Yeah, it reminds me of Preacher. I got like 1 through 60 a Preacher.
Oh wow.
Wow.
And when I look at it, I'm like, I really don't want that many of, I really just want 1 through 10,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got up to 4 long boxes of comics, which is not a lot. I know there are people who have
Mm-hmm.
a terrifying amount, but their pictures of their collections just make it so unattractive. I'm just like, I don't want that many boxes. It's just like,
No,
I live in a
I
1-bedroom
totally feel you.
apartment. I don't need that. Like, it's just
I totally get it. Yeah.
picking
Yeah.
my battles. I'd
Yeah.
rather have bookshelves than cardboard
Yep.
boxes that are
Yep.
destroyed when a cup of water spills on it. Like, I'm fine.
Done.
Yeah. Why don't we take a moment, I guess, y'all, to introduce yourself so people can recognize voice with name.
I'll let you go first, Brian.
Yep. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Hawkins, co-creator, co-writer of Black Cotton. Glad to be on here chatting it up a little bit. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And I'm also co-creator of Black Cotton. My name's Patrick Foreman. And thrilled to be here with you. Definitely. Thanks for the invite, Erin.
Thanks for reaching out, too. Like, y'all are going to be my second creator interview, so congratulations. You are going to be in the top 5 creator interviews for Girls Talk
All
Comics.
right.
So,
Hey, we like that. Top 5.
Yeah.
yeah. It's great.
Thank you.
When we first thought about doing the interviews, I'll be honest, I was like, I want to talk to readers because, like, y'all creators always have something going on, and that's lovely. And I support that because I do buy them. But at some point, I'm like, why do readers read comics? That's a question I have as someone who works in the industry to sell them. Because, like, if y'all sell them to my store, I have to sell them out of the store, right? Like,
Right.
I have to get people back to buy issues too. But I do like talking to y'all as well because you guys are readers also, and fell so in love with the comic art that you created more. This is going to be a little weird. I'm still trying to figure out the balance of, like, focusing on your project versus just talking about comics and the culture. That actually makes me really excited about Black Cotton, because my podcast did get surprisingly political, and Black Cotton's really kind of relevant to a lot of things that have been happening recently, both in the comics community and in the United States as a whole. This is still relevant. We can make it all happen. Let's start with a little bit get to know. We obviously talked comics a little bit, but I would assume you guys have some things outside of comics that you like. I have 3 questions. You can answer all 3 or none. Favorite midnight snack, favorite character from your childhood of any media, or favorite worst movie.
Favorite worst movie. She didn't say favorite,
Yeah. It's the worst movie you watched that's your favorite. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to start. I'll start off this one, Brian. I'll give you time to, ponder on your answers.
Thank you.
My favorite worst movie, which y'all might not know of, but it's a Rob Zombie movie. I think it's the Lords of Salem. It's the name of it. It's something. Check this out. My wife picked the movie out because she liked Rob Zombie movies, and we went, and halfway through the movie, she looked at me and she said, "I'm sorry." She was like, "You picked the next movie." I don't know. That movie sucked so bad. Even she could, she was like, "I'm sorry."
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah. It's bad.
If you ever meet my wife, that was a hard statement for her to make. So that just tells you how bad the movie, really was. Let me see. Amazing. Favorite midnight snack. Oh man, chocolate cake always. I just went to the store and bought a fat piece of chocolate cake that I shouldn't have bought, but my wife is out of town. So I have nobody here judging me when I eat it. So
there you go.
Yeah, she flew out Saturday, so I got at least 5 days that I can eat in peace without somebody looking at me and judging me.
I love
it. What was the second question again, please?
Favorite character from your childhood.
Oh man, that's a little tough. Simply because it always goes back to Wolverine. Wolverine was one of the first comic books I ever bought. Still have it. I still love Wolverine. I wish they would do better with Wolverine and bring him back to the platform that he had way back in the the 80s and the 90s when he was really on top. But I love Wolverine. Love Wolverine. My people were Wolverine, Venom, and Sabretooth. That was my three people. If they were in a comic book, I bought it. Period.
That's a good trio.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good assortment.
Dope. All right. So to clarify worst movie, we're talking about like the worst, like it's a bad movie, right? Like my favorite worst movie. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Mission to Mars. No hesitation. Mission to Mars. I believe Matt Damon was in that thing. Oh my goodness. I love to hate that movie. That is the worst movie ever made. I'm sorry. I cannot stand that movie.
These are strong opinions. We're gonna find
you
a
can
Mission
probably
to Mars fan
hear
base.
the venom in my. You can hear the venom in my voice about it. Like I'm very impassioned about hating that movie. Oh God! Like I fell asleep watching it. I made myself go to sleep because no one else wanted to leave, and I was mad when I woke up, and it was still happening. Yeah, I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah, I will never forget that. Never. Oh God, yes. All right. I'm better now.
Okay.
I'm let that go. On to favorite snack. My favorite midnight snack is actually bourbon. I like having a glass of bourbon like on Friday. When I'm not doing anything on a Friday, the kids are, on their devices or they're watching a movie or they've gone to bed like around 10 or 11 and I'm watching a movie. I just like to have a glass of bourbon. Just sit there and just watch a movie and just breathe. Cartoon characters. I'm going to have to go. So it's twofold. My first will have to be He-Man. I'm a huge He-Man fan. But I also love Thundarr the Barbarian. I remember searching, it felt like endlessly, for a Thundarr the Barbarian toy. I could never find one. But I have found one now. And I'm ordering that bad boy. It's going to cost me a pretty penny. But I'm buying it.
Worth it.
So yeah.
You deserve it, man.
Well, do y'all want to know my answers? Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll start with favorite worst movie. There is a movie called Hell Comes to Frogtown.
I won't look it up.
Yeah, so it's like this weird post-apocalyptic thing, and I think there's like a lot of like there's only one man left on Earth, and he, his goal will eventually to be repopulate the Earth, so it's got this ridiculous concept with that. But this nuclear fallout made all the frogs humanoid, and I think I fell in the movie's just absurd. The prosthetics is like just super rubbery and super bad, and the scripting is just super bad, and I love how bad it was, and I fell in love with it, particularly when one of the people in one of the frog costumes is yelling at one of the other characters and just shouts, "Shut your hole!" in like the weirdest line execution ever. Like it's so awkward. It's like we went from bad sci-fi to like Shakespearean stage play, and I was like, what is happening here thematically? And that was when I decided I loved that movie. But it's also the worst thing I've ever watched.
I get it.
I think my favorite midnight snack is pretty simple. It's just a bowl of Frosted Flakes. Just just something.
Cereal. That would have been my second answer. I can eat cereal any time of the day.
Cereal is something I can have judgment free in my house. Like my husband doesn't judge when I eat cereal, but if I had a slice of chocolate cake, he'd be like immediately downstairs just staring at me like, what the fuck are you doing? So that might be why. My favorite character from my childhood is honestly Crash Bandicoot. I love that guy from the PS1 games. I don't know. I saw a recent like ad for a new figure for him, and the only thing that's stopping me from getting it is it's like $100. I was like, I don't need $100 Crash Bandicoot toy in my home. Or at least I don't need people to know that I'd make that purchase, but whatever. It's like, so yeah, Crash Bandicoot. He's just goofy, has no lines. Thank you for answering those questions. I appreciate it.
Very well.
That was fun. I've learned about you guys, and that was worth it. We're going to find the Mission to Mars crew. We're going to find the Rob Zombie crew. We're going to find the Bourbon crew. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Everybody's
there
going
you
to come
go.
together.
I'm actually going to look up that movie. I want to see a clip or something.
Please do. Honestly,
I am.
It's something I would love for people to watch. Just
All right.
so everyone knows. Yeah. So let's talk about Black Cotton a little bit, since that is your comic and we all want people to read it.
Black Cotton.
Want to give the spiel? The premise?
Yeah. Brian does it the best.
Ooh, pressure's on, Brian.
Let me get the voice going. So, Black Cotton is set in an alternate reality where the social order of white and black is reversed. And Lita's family, the Cottons, are trying to help their police officer son, Zion Cotton, in this trying time where he has shot an unarmed minority white woman. So the Cottons are rallying around the older son. Meanwhile, the social climate and everything around the city and even the nation is on upheaval. Tensions are rising because of the reverse, quote unquote, social structure racism, Black Cotton. But it's not really reverse racism, though.
No. Yeah.
That's how
there's no such thing
that's
as
how
reverse
people
racism,
are viewing it lately, though.
Yeah.
Really?
But it's nothing like that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the first issue has dropped. So obviously you're getting feedback from the public. And you already mentioned people are taking it as a reverse racism thing. Can we just talk about that? Because
yeah,
I would love to.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we can all agree reverse racism doesn't exist. So that's there's that. So that's where Girls Talk Comics stands. So but how has the response been? What have you seen and what have your reactions been to it?
I guess I'll start on this one, Brian.
Go ahead.
The reviews have been mixed, but the beauty about it is we've had more positive reviews than actual negative. And I believe that even with if you break down the negative reviews that we've received, you can break it down to individuals who have made a judgment from a cover or from just reading the tagline and not actually opening the comic book and taking the time to read it. Because many of our positive reviews, people have reached out to us and they've asked, can we do a review? And we're like, yeah. And then their second question is, can we be honest? And we're like, of course, we want you to be honest. And we've had several reviews where they start off saying, after reading the tagline, I assumed a certain thing. I didn't want to read the comic book. But after I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. And they
That's
make
powerful
it to
stuff.
the end. Right. And what they're saying is that, my perception was wrong. And once I actually gave it a chance, it was something totally different from what I thought it would be, which goes back to what you were talking about with many people assume that it's reverse racism, or they assume that what you're going to see is everything just flipped in color wise, but it isn't. It is
Right.
furthest from that. The biggest thing that they miss is it says the social order is in reverse, and it's not a reality check. It's not a preaching story. It is a actual phenomenal story that is unfolding. Period. But it is a story that is designed to challenge your perceptions, your implicit bias, and it is it's taking you through a process that me and Brian have went through for, I would say, from since we started in January 2020, because that's when me and Brian started, to now that we've probably had 1,000 times, because we talk constantly.
Yeah.
And in those talks and in the vamping and construction of Black Cotton, we've had to deal with some of our own implicit bias, and we've had to identify it and then talk about it and then address it. And after that, remove it from the story because we don't want our implicit bias in there because it will mess up the entire story. So that's my piece on it. What you got, Brian?
I mean, very well said. And the only thing I can add to that is like I brought up at the end reverse racism, on purpose because it's fresh in my mind. I think the reviews have been mostly very positive, and I think what stands out in my mind is the small group who sees it as some type of as racism, as like this is a racist book. And it just really baffles me that when you do a alternate reality story which happens all the time, by the way. I mean, Man in the High Castle. I mean, is that is that anti-Semitic? I mean, like that doesn't get that tag, but this gets that tag because of the sordid history that America has with race, and then even going further with slavery. And so I don't know, on a human condition level, it really kind of just shines bright for me, like how much as a whole, I think, we don't want to really look in the mirror at ourselves. And I'm not just speaking of one race. I'm talking about humanity. Right. We don't want to really look at ourselves. And then the best way for us not to look at ourselves is for us to throw out a label real quick that justifies how we feel about something so that we don't have to feel a certain way or even begin to think about how we feel about ourselves. And so to tag Black Cotton racist or reverse racism does a disservice to, I think, I'm going to say it, the potential of humanity. And I think that's what Patrick and I are trying to write to, is the potential of humanity. Yeah. And with that, in order to do that, we have to embrace different perspectives. Not saying one perspective is right over the other. We're just saying, let's change the perspective. And the perspective that you're bringing into it, let's see what happens by the time you finish this. It's a journey of self-discovery for us all. As Patrick was describing, we're on the journey too, as the creators and writers. Like, we're going through a process as well. But it just amazes me how quickly some human beings are willing to just cut themselves short of growth just because they are afraid of being refined.
I love all of that. And actually, I'm glad you talked about implicit bias. As soon as I read those words in the issue, I was like, fuck yes. Because, everyone wants concrete examples of racism or sexism or ableism or anything like that. But that implicit bias is what's really nefarious about it, right? And working in mental health, and I've worked with adults with intellectual developmental disabilities, going through social work classes, we spent so much time in that universe spends so much time trying to do that self-reflection and growth in understanding our biases. I'll be honest, the field as a whole really lacks any conversation about race. It really does. So the fact that y'all had to talk about your implicit bias for that, I was really jealous because I have a lot of white counterparts and they don't always want to admit that it's racism. And I'm like, maybe our one Black client is we need a little special approach to her because I worked with one woman who tiptoed around saying she was a good placement for one of my clients because they were both Black women, and she didn't want to talk about how the woman's hair had been neglected. And I was like, you could just say that. It's fine to just say that. Yeah. It's important to acknowledge that. But that was the closest to a race conversation I had in the IDD or the mental health world. So reading this comic was really, really great because the lack of color in it, in the art as well, just really takes it down to the bare minimum of what are these people saying? And they're saying things like, I thought she had a gun. Okay, that's not a good argument. They're saying things like, what will it cost for you to go away? And you're like, that's not good stuff, regardless. And so I'm glad that the implicit bias was specifically said, and I hope people Google it. Google implicit bias.
Please Google,
do
guys.
some research.
Please.
Yeah. Because that's what we're talking about.
I'm glad you said that. You said a couple of things. One, especially about the color, because we've received that question in several other talking with people, and it was by design. It really wasn't a deep or long conversation between me and Brian. Like, hey, should we do color or not? It was actually both of us. It was probably what, a 5 minute thing. It was more like, oh, you were thinking the same thing, black and white.
Yeah,
Hey, me too.
yeah,
And
It's
it's so funny,
literally a black and white conversation. Like
right?
it's, it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
there you go.
yeah,
yeah.
and it was so cool because we wanted people to not get distracted. So just like how you were describing it,
Hmm.
we wanted people to, one, focus on the expressions. Look at the expressions on the people's faces. We wanted you to hone in on the words that are being said, and not get caught up in the color. Because I feel
Hmm.
if we had colored it, then we would be having more conversations about, well, why'd you use that color? And I don't know, it would have been more
Right.
about the color instead of the content. And
Hmm.
we feel that Black Cotton is such a powerful tool to create conversation. This is what we love, me and Brian, right here talking to you. This is if we could do this every day, this is what we do. This is why we
Yeah,
brought Black Cotton to the world, because we wanted people to, one, be able to read it, identify certain things, have that conversation with yourself, like, whoa, wow, oh, snap, oh, have that clarity,
yeah,
and then have that done energy built inside of you where you're like, I gotta talk to somebody. Yo, hey, let's talk about this. and,
Yeah.
and this is what the world needs. The world needs more people to get back to actually having conversations with each other.
I think right around the time that I read the preview, I can't find the date for that specifically. I had to do a cultural awareness training. That's what it's all called in the mental health world.
Diversity training.
Yeah, yeah, it always ends up becoming somebody saying something about dividing us on color or whatever. And reading that issue, I've always wanted to do this, but being a petite white woman, I kind of don't like to confront strangers when we don't have videos. And I'm like, I'm just gonna be quiet. It's fine. But there's always at least one person who's like, why are we dividing each other by race? And why are we talking about this? And da da da. And now at this point, I kind of want to go,
yeah,
because what we're doing is bad regardless of the color, and y'all made it about the color because we're specifically neglecting our black clients. Like, you just,
yeah.
specifically, that employer was in a county here that has majority of the black population in Kansas. So it's also a very poor county, and
Mm.
to have a mental health center that's predominantly white, middle class, and from
And
outside of the county, it's kind of like, ooh, maybe we should talk about that. Like, that's
Right.
like,
yeah,
another way that racism is showing in our system. Like, it's like, maybe,
mm,
but so this is
Yeah, no, that's deep. Yeah,
yeah,
and it's real. I mean, that's real.
material like this where it really breaks the message down is useful for me as somebody who participates in and should challenge those conversations, because it really did just break it down. Like, it is shitty to just ask somebody, how much does it cost to get rid of you? It's just straight up like,
Yeah,
it's just a horrible thing to say regardless. And if you're
yeah,
saying it to somebody, you need to think about why it was okay. And if that
right.
is because they're a different gender, a different sexuality, a different religion, or a different color, that's a problem. So it's like, so this is good stuff. What I'm saying as a
absolutely.
reader is, you're motivating me to talk more about it. So thank you.
That's
You
awesome to
all.
hear. That's yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for that. Yeah,
You're welcome.
yeah, that's cool. And it's a lot to unpack with that. When Jaleesa says that at the end, like, how much are called, like, the in issue one, it's a lot to unpack because is she speaking from her being black, or is she speaking from her being rich, or is she speaking from
Mm-hmm.
both?
Yeah.
Or is she speaking from her own ego with her class and with her knowledge base and with her education? So there's a lot of places that Lisa could be coming from. And I think, as the story go on, maybe we'll look back at that and, or maybe readers will make that judgment call on their own. Like, what place is she coming from? But you hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, no matter what place she's coming from, you just don't say that to someone. That's not, that's not love. That's not kindness. So yeah, that's
I actually
important.
really do like the classism still in there, because like being around a lot of leftist folks, we do like to talk about what will fix it all, and of course everyone's like, destroy capitalism and everything's saved, and I'm like, maybe a little bit, but like people still suck, regardless of how much money like they make. Right. So I thought that was still kind of cool to have that in there. Yeah,
it's all a human condition problem that we've built different social constructs around. Race is a social construct, beyond what our skin is. I mean, at the end of the day, because I don't have black skin, I have brown skin actually, and we all actually have a tone, some form of brown skin, melanin. All of us, it's the degree of melanin in our skin that gives the inflection of what shade of brown we are.
I have 0.5%.
So for me to even, I'm sorry.
Said I have 0.5%. I got like a freckle.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Right. But like, so, I mean, you're not like the color white. I'm not the color black. So what does that mean anyway? It's a social construct. We just understand to say those words and what they mean. And those things were given to us. And it's now embedded inside of us, in our ideology and the way we think about ourselves and see ourselves. But if you can begin to kind of strip that down some, and you can see the social construct that it is, and what formed that social construct, and what's behind that social construct. And the real color that's behind it is green.
Right.
So, can I share a kind of a weird and personal story about my family when it comes to? Okay.
Your show.
Thanks. So despite this pale 0.5% melanin does ironically come from my Mexican family. I am Mexican. Okay. Nobody knows it because I am a blonde, fair, blue-eyed whitey who also doesn't speak Spanish. So that kind of ties into that too a little bit. But like, no, my mother, on the other hand, has black hair, brown skin, brown eyes. And she got that from her French-Canadian family. So when my grandmother was married to my mother's father, his family was pretty racist. Let's just say they were on the border of Texas. So like, let's be real. Okay. And they would play stupid little games where my aunt, being the daughter of the landowner or whatever, but also dark-haired, was dressed up and also handing out gifts to the Hispanic workers' children's. And when I heard that story growing up, that was when I realized it was all a fucking money game. And I was like, that's a disgusting game to play. But it's, that was another one of those situations of like having to always sit there and think about like, what did my family do? That was hella embarrassing. And also, how do I never do that again? Never do that. But it's just examples of like that, where it's like that was so money motivated by the family too, and very real, because it wasn't politicians in DC or a CEO. It was great grandparents of mine did stupid shit like that, and I'm like, like because of my fair skin. That, sorry to overshare with that. That was not meant kind of like a weird guilt thing. It was just an example of this conversation in real life. So,
but that's the beauty of Black kind.
Yeah,
without us bringing a platform to where discussions like this can happen, and you feel safe enough to share it, then these types of conversations will never happen. I believe you are not alone in that.
Right. Totally.
If we really think about it, and people say it all the time, I mean, civil rights was not that long ago.
It wasn't.
It really wasn't.
Yeah.
So that in itself means that there is a huge generation of people just like you with close ancestors. We're not talking, great, 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 We're talking close ancestors that if they Googled them, they might be one of those pictures that pop up where they got
Mhm.
kids on their shoulders and somebody's dead is right there in the picture, and this
Yeah.
is stuff that people they don't want to actually talk about. They want to just leave it and kind of say it never happened. And what we're saying is don't say it
It
never
happens.
happened.
Yeah.
Let's just throw it on the table
Yeah.
and talk about it.
Yeah.
That's about it. Let's acknowledge it so we can move on. But if you say, "Hey, it never happened," then it's almost like just a disrespect.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
let's just talk about it. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I think I saw a lot of people recently, certainly with the COVID conversation and that being everywhere, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and with this last presidency and everything that's happened from that. We finally, as a country, just kind of need to accept that we are traumatized because
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and we're in a
it's not
healing
going to
process.
do anything to admit it. We just have to. Like, let's not lie anymore. We have had a disaster over the last 4 years. Let's just accept it. Talk about it. And all of
Absolutely.
that past history to come back. Like, we have to. Anyway, you know what? I'm mostly
Now,
saying this so other white listeners can feel safe. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to burden you with it. Like,
No. It's
now, I will say this though to people: black
yeah.
kind don't go that hard,
Okay, good.
because
Yes. Sorry, I go that hard.
and we going back to the reviews, we had this one review that really got under my skin, and Brian had to really talk me down. But we had this black female and this white guy over in the UK somewhere, and she was going in. I mean, she was going in, and she actually said, that she couldn't set her implicit bias aside. And that's good to go. I understand, but she wanted us to go hard. I mean, she was looking for that reverse racism, and that's not what black kindness is all about. And one thing that I, will say that me and Brian talked about is how can you expect change if you never give people an example of the change that you are seeking? For instance, my example would be Zion. In the story, you will notice that Zion, the cop who shot the minority white woman, shows remorse. And it's too many times that these incidents have happened in real life, and we see the law enforcement that were involved show no remorse. Somebody is dead, and they're dead because of an action that you were involved in. It's okay to show remorse. They view it as an admission of guilt, but it's not always an admission of guilt. It's just how human beings should react, especially if somebody died, So we show the change that we seek.
That's beautiful. That's really good. Like, okay, I'm gonna listen to y'all for the rest of it. I've got a lot of processing, and y'all have a great back and forth. So,
Hey, Brian, what's the one where you always talk about? You give that quote.
Malcolm.
Yeah.
The Malcolm quote. Yeah, you were saying it about putting things on the table. And one of the things that stands out to me from the autobiography of Malcolm X, it's funny because Malcolm is taught, in schools as being the militant one, right? But one of his most militant things was, let's sit down and have a conversation. That's what Malcolm said for the two sides, white and black, to sit down and have a conversation. Go to the table, look each other in the eye, and talk about it. Let out negative, positive, let it all out so that we both can see each other for who we are. And then from there, we can start to build something. Maybe it is going our separate ways, but at least separate ways would have an understanding of what needs to take place, what needs to be built to separate and then form a bridge. But if you don't ever have the conversation, if you sweep under the rug, if you dole out money to make it go away, if you take away the mirror, whisper sweet nothings, everything's fine. Everything's fine. What you get, not to politicize, is the last 4 years. You get people who really don't know who they are, but they have an idea of who they want to be. And so you see yourself through the lens of someone else and through your wants and your desires, which then go back. I mean, I could wax on a little bit about dukkha and suffering and the stuff and not getting what we want, which causes our suffering. That's what we experience, and that's what we see mostly in our America and in our world, is this fractured desire of what we want to be with the inability to get to the place where we want to be because we're not actually seeing ourselves the way we should see ourselves. And sometimes it takes you looking at me, who might not look like you, to actually see who you are. And that's okay. That's the way this universe is built, with differences and diversity, multifaceted organisms that do not do the same thing or look the same way, but they all come together for one remarkable ecosystem. And we're all built the same way. But when you go against what is naturally made, what nature intends, which is what we've always done, we get destruction, we get suffering, we get dukkha. And that's where we're at. It's the cycle that we're in until we look at each other, sit down at the table, have a conversation.
This is why I love reading comics, because
exactly, all of this from a comic. Exactly.
Yeah, all this from a comic. Like
exactly.
It's beautiful
Comics
stuff.
Great.
Like, y'all are bringing really great ideas and vibes and beautifully collected aesthetic. Because that, again, I think that black and white art is really gonna. Like, I hope you guys lead a revolution kind of with that. I do read manga, and it's always black and white, and it's still beautifully well done. And so I hope that you two can make a positive impact for the black and white art as a valid form of comic books. I have a feeling that's going to be a common complaint to going forward.
Wow. Definitely appreciate that. Shout out to Marco. Marco, he took this idea that Patrick and I had, in how, like, the organic form, visual form and concept that we wanted, and he's just worked magic. He's, without his storytelling through art, none of this would come across. And, so it would be, we would be remiss if we did not shout out Marco and, our whole team, Francisco and Jerry and Marcello, all of them, for this awesome collaboration and how they've taken Patrick and I under their wing, right? Yeah. And helped to build and mold this magical thing. And I call it magic because it's amazing to see it birthed the way it has been birthed. Patrick and I talk about it all the time. Although we're tagged as like creators of this, we're contributors,
right,
to this thing that this whole group is forming.
And
I love this.
And here's what I'll say, because I love to say this to the world, is our Black Cotton team is a true diverse team internationally. I mean, Marcello is in Brazil. Marco, he's in Italy, right?
Yeah.
We got
Francisco.
Argentina, right?
Argentina.
And
Jerry is in Sweden.
Right, Sweden, yeah. And I should know this because I had to mail the comic books off to him. Man, that was a great,
Yeah, it was.
That was my first time mailing stuff internationally. I was looking at the post person like, run it again,
The true behind the scene costs of comics, the unknown ones, international
There we go.
shipping. Yeah.
but
Jeez.
hey, I sent it off with pleasure. Me and Brian, I should say, me and Brian sent those comics
Yeah.
off with pleasure because without them, Black Cotton, it wouldn't be. It's a true team effort, and we're all contributors, and we all want the best.
Yeah, this has all just been wonderful. So we usually just try to keep our episodes at about an hour. So probably I'm not entirely even sure how we can follow any of that up with maintaining that momentum and grace, because I'm kind of overwhelmed and still new to interviews. It's fine. I'll be honest.
Hey,
No,
there's
yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
thank you guys so much for coming on and joining me today for this. This has really been phenomenal. And I really have to hunt down that first issue with the second print coming out. I missed the first print. I really did. I was like, but I'll do better. I promise.
Midtown Comics. I saw they, you can pre-order it from them.
Okay.
Farside Comics. Yeah, I was on it today. I almost ordered some myself.
Hey, you know that I saw yesterday because a friend of mine from high school, he hit me up. Great guy, great guy. He's actually the vice mayor of the town we grew up in. It's so crazy, man. It's so cool. He was inquiring about comic, and Wrath of Comics actually they bought in bulk from Scout, so they have a few left. They got some upcharge on it though. But they have a Kia cover.
Oh,
they have a Kia cover, and they got a couple ash cans, and they got a couple of the main covers too. But yeah, while I'm on it, Scout Comics, shout out to them too for one, publishing us, of course, and two, they really brought us into their family. Patrick and I got that email. We want to welcome Black Cotton to the family, and it really has felt that way. Our editor,
That's
Andrea,
amazing.
Brendan, James, David. I don't want to forget any names, but Charlie. Scout Comics is phenomenal, and for them to put their trust, in us and our team, and to back Black Cotton, to take a chance on Black Cotton, it truly means a lot.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I just want to say, hey, thank you, Erin. Definitely, this has been a phenomenal time, talking with you, having this conversation with you. Every interview, it seems like it's different, and we love it simply because it sounds and it actually flows just like a conversation, as if we were, in a coffee shop, talking to each other. And that's what we love. Like I said before, we love the conversations because we love the honesty. And through conversation is where growth happens. So we learned a lot about you, and we learned about, some areas in the mental, health that they need to, also work on.
Yeah.
So this is phenomenal. Hey, appreciate you reaching out to us. And guess what? Anytime you want us, all you got to do, you got our contacts. Hit us up.
Keeping that in mind. And I also hope anybody who listens to this and reaches out to y'all afterwards keeps all of your little hints about how to have a good interview with you in mind. No pressure. Anybody following this?
No pressure.
Yeah. So for our little sign off here, we like to do one of those really long, kind of annoying nasally buys. We just love that. So what I'll do, we'll do your wife does that too.
Yeah, my wife be like, bye.
I started doing that because the comic shop's owner's wife started doing that, and it really pissed him off. So we at the store just started doing that. So he would leave, and we would all just be like, bye, like as he was leaving out the door, and he's like, I'm gonna fire all of you. And so that's why I love it. Why not piss off the person who's paying you? So
yeah, why not? See how far you can go with that.
Bye. Thank you guys.
They're restarting Spider-Man again?
Yeah.
They're always starting Spider-Man again.
Yeah. I figured I would I like Farside Comics, man. He be having some
They have some dope covers, man.
Yeah. Plus, he offers CGC. I figured, hey, why do I need to send it in?
Right.
He's only charging $45. It costs $30 to get it done, and
Right.
I still gotta ship it and get it
Yeah.
back. So I was like, that's about $45 right there. So let him do
So
it.
you got this. So you got the CGC Spider-Man 1?
Yeah.
Is that what you got? Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
I figure I'd go
That's
ahead and,
awesome.
the Virgin cover too.
Ooh. I know that's your thing.
Yeah.
Those are always so nice.
I know.
Nice.
I'll tell you something, Erin, that I got 2 years ago, and really wasn't. I just got it because I looked and kind of looked for deals, I guess you could say, or some steals, and I got the Ultimate Fallout #4, signed by Stan Lee and Bagley, CGC graded, for $218.
Wow.
And that thing, just been going crazy this week. Old boy from Farside, he he bought 2 for like $2,000 a piece.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I was like, man, I'm gonna just
too rich for my blood.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that away then.
No.
Too rich for
you
my
asked
blood.
how long we had been doing this, and you're talking about the Virgin variants and stuff. I've been working in a comic shop for about 5 years, and so every time I see a Virgin variant, I'm a little bit. I have met like 3 artists, and I just listen to them bitch, and then the trust is I never repeat what they say, so they can still get jobs. It's So I started recording because Jess absolutely loves Candid Talk to throw in randomly.
Nice.
So power to her. I would gladly have her here, but her internet sucks, and she doesn't like to do the interviews as much as I do. So
it's all good.
We play to our strengths. It's fine. We're perfectly married like that, where she does audio and I just get to talk to people. It's perfect.
Sound like a good relationship.
It's amazing. Like, my strength is not sitting and doing that. So power to her.